Shalom. Beautiful people, how are you? I hope you guys are doing well. I really do. If this is your first time here, my name is Sarah Davis. I am the founder and CEO of AscendingLifestyle.com. So welcome. Thank you for being here. As you guys can tell by the title of this video, we are going to be discussing the well-anticipated Anunnaki thing, okay? Here's the deal. I feel like I was guided to have this conversation because I think that there is going to be a lot of archaeological advances in the next, I'm going to say 20 years, right? There's going to be a lot of advances, a lot of discoveries. And these discoveries are really going to challenge the belief systems that have been implemented within our society. Okay. So another thing that I want to say is that I have done as much research as I can for myself. I know that I'm here to give you guys the information as well, but I'm also here to tell you that this conversation is literally just the opening of the door of your conscious and your awareness. Some of you guys might know about this subject. Some of you guys may have done your own research. I totally love it. I respect it. Again, this isn't gonna go into great detail. I'm not the best person to get this information from, but I do think that there is a reason why on this channel we do need to have this conversation. Okay, and we'll talk about it. There are two main people that I've been getting my information from. The first is a young woman. Her name is Marian. Unfortunately, I don't know her last name, but I'm sure that if you went onto YouTube and typed in Marian interview on the Anunnaki, she has this interview with this older woman who has been featured on the Ancient Aliens History Channel, all the things. So they do an interview together, and then she does a separate conversation. I watched both of them, and it's pretty informative. I like her a lot. She's a beautiful young woman. And then the second person that I got most of my information from, his name is Billy Carson. So I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him. He's pretty popular, but he has great information. You can tell that this area of study is a passion of his. He's fascinated by it, and his passion brings out a fascination within you if you watch it, right? There's a lot of like clicks too when certain things, it's like puzzle pieces will come together if you choose to research outside of this video. Okay, I highly suggest watching him if this is an interest of yours. Third of all, if you do hear noise upstairs, I do have some calming music in the background. If you do hear noise upstairs, it's just life, right? I have people, my family is above me right now, so that's that. So let's go ahead and get into this discussion, okay? Thank you guys so much for being here. First of all, I just want to talk about the word Anunnaki, okay? Anu means father sky, okay? Ki means mother earth. Anunna means those descended from. So basically Anunnaki means the origins, like the deep definition of the word means those who came from the sky down to earth, okay? Now, when you think of the Anunnaki, I want you to think about human beings, okay? The Anunnaki is a species of beings that has subspecies within that species as a whole. The same thing with human beings. Human beings is a species as a whole, but then within human beings, there are subspecies, right? It's the same thing with the Anunnaki. I do think that this is important because I'm not completely convinced that just one species of Anunnaki came to Earth at the same time. I'm not completely convinced of that. And that's my own personal thing, okay? So around 450,000 years ago, it is said that the Anunnaki came from the planet of Nibiru down to Earth to mine for Earth's minerals. Basically, it's crystals and mainly for gold. Okay. Now so this is what I'm going to do too. I'm not 100% how accurate this is, what I'm about to say, but I'm using it to simplify here because it makes it easier for me as well as we're talking about this. So the Anak, which is actually a term that is used in certain ancient civilizations, the Anak were, I'm going to say that they were like they came in a hierarchy sort of system. So the Anak were the kings and queens, and the Ijiji, which is another term that is used, and the Ijiji were actually the skilled, excuse me. I started intermittent fasting and I just got done eating, so my body is like, oh. Anyways, side note, the Ijiji were like the skilled labor that came with the Anak. Okay, so it'd be the same thing as if like Elon Musk, right, in his exploration to Mars. What he's going to do is he's going to have skilled hands, skilled labor people that he wants to initially go to Mars so that they can build out and construct the landscape of Mars for other people to come. It's the same exact thing. So the Anak were like the kings and queens, and the Ijiji was the skilled labor. The Ijiji came to help mine the earth, okay? There came a point, and this was 450,000 years ago, okay? There suddenly came a point around 200,000 years ago when the Ijiji went to the Anak and basically said, we're tired. Like, we're fucking tired, okay? I don't know why we're doing all this work when we have hominoids just running around, right? Staring at us because we're giant beings compared to them, okay? It's so funny because in the Bible, they actually talk about the Nephilim. There's a specific passage in the Bible that I've actually like really fucking channeled before, okay? And it's the Nephilim. There's a specific passage that says in Genesis, the Nephilim were here before they came and they were here after they came. And I believe that the they is actually just the Anunnaki, right? And this is the hominoid saying, like, these big fuckers are here and they're just like running around in caves. We have no idea how they're doing this shit. And they were still here after they basically gave birth to our cousins. So we're the cousins of the hominoids. I feel like I just got off track with that. So the Ijiji went to the Anak and said, look, we're tired, we're sick of this shit, we have hominoids running around, why don't we have all of the fucking tools, we have the tool, we know how to clone, we know how to tamper with people with DNA and all of this shit, we're technologically advanced, right? Why don't we tamper with these hominoids, right? Why don't we change these things up and make them into something that can do the work for us, basically, right? So around 200,000 years ago, what they did is they took some hominoids and they started to clone them. And they started to clone them so that they had enough wherewithal to be able to understand and to be able to, I guess, in my perspective, probably at least have some sort of where they could communicate properly with them, all types of shit, okay? So they tampered with the hominoids and made them basically slaves. They didn't know that they were slaves, but they made them slaves, okay? They didn't have the awareness enough to understand that they were being enslaved, right? The problem is that they were what they were doing is what they were said to be doing was they were taking DNA from the hominoids, and then they were taking DNA from themselves, and they were trying to intertwine them, and it wasn't working the way that they were doing it, the way that they were creating these things, because they couldn't reproduce on their own. And what happened was they had to continuously clone, continuously breed a certain type of way in order to have, I don't even think it was human beings at that point. It was something different. It's kind of like, if you think about it, it's kind of like when they do the whole thing with a horse and a donkey and they create a mule. If you don't know, a mule is descendant from a horse and a donkey, right? But mules cannot reproduce. Mules do not have the ability to reproduce, right? They can't breed, right? So it was the same exact thing. It's the same. I mean, we see it. We've done it with animal species ourselves, right? It's the same fucking thing. I need to take a pause. Yeah. I'm telling you guys, I've tried to do this video like 5 fucking times at this point. And I've had to restart because it's a lot of information to try and give someone, trying to give people that when you don't, you're not as versed in, I'm not versed in giving this type of information, right? It's new territory for me. Okay. So this happened. Now I have to backtrack a little bit. So, I have to backtrack because we have to talk about Enlil, Enki, and I think it's Ninsun. So Enlil and Enki and Ninsun. So Ninsun is a woman, and Enlil and Enki are brothers, and they all come from they're descendants of Anu and Ki. Okay. So as they were making clones, right? These three were like the Anu was obviously the king. Okay, so these were like the princes and the princess, right? So when the Ijiji had this conversation with Anu, the king, these three were tasked with trying to come up with a solution. And these three were the ones who started cloning, okay? Enlil was more of a demonist being. You can kind of think of Enlil and Enki as Cain and Abel, okay? Enlil was more of like a devious being. Enki, and I believe that Enki and Ninsun were actually twins. So they had a different type of bond, right? So what ended up happening was, because the cloning wasn't working, Enki and Ninsun decided to try something else. Now, if you research, all of this is happening again around 200,000 years ago, and this is happening around the same time that the Stone Age all of a sudden fucking ends. All of a sudden there's a split in human beings. There's a split in our advancement. There's a split in our understanding. All of a sudden we come out and we understand language, we understand math, we understand astrology, farming, fucking building, energy, frequency. We all of a sudden have this knowledge out of nowhere. And it doesn't just happen in the Sumerian area, right? It doesn't just happen in this culture. It happens in multiple different places around the world. It happens in the old Mayan fucking area. It happens in Indonesia, in China, in Russia. There's all of these different areas around the world where this is all happening simultaneously, okay? All of them have very, very similar creation stories, and every single one of these cultures talk about the Great Flood that happens as well. So this is not a coincidence. This is like fact, This is actually happening at this time. And this is why I don't believe that there was only one species of an Anunnaki that came down. Because Thoth is also said to, Thoth and his brother, I believe his brother is Marduk, were actually a part of the Atlantis creation. And Thoth is said to have traveled over where the Mayans were, and he goes under, I think his name is Kukulkan in that area, but he is said to travel and go to many different areas. So I don't believe that he was a part of the same species as Enlil, Enki, and Ninsun, right? I don't believe that they have a relation. Okay. So in ancient Egypt, they do talk about Isis, I believe, and it is said that Isis was actually a Sumerian pantheon. And I have a feeling that she was under the name of Ninsun. I believe that she was Ninsun in an ancient Sumerian pantheon. And sorry, it's a lot. If you look at Isis, which is an Egyptian god, there is in the British Museum, it's like, I think it's called a cylinder, but basically it's like a tablet with text from Isis. And what she says, listen to what she says. So it says, Isis was one of the original Sumerian pantheons, not Egyptian, right? And this is something that is going to challenge people. The fact that Egyptians did not create the pyramids, Egyptians inherited the pyramids from ancient Sumerian culture. Same thing with the Mayans. The Mayans did not create those temples and those pyramids. They inherited those temples and those pyramids from an ancient civilization that came before them. Okay. On this scroll, on this tablet, whatever it is that's in the British Museum, I forget what it's called. Okay. It says the first Adamu, which means man, my hands have created it, which is Adam in the Bible, right? We're talking about Adam and Eve. Okay. In the ancient, in this tablet that is far older than the Bible, okay? Isis says, but it's not Isis, I believe it's Ninsun. Ninsun says, the first Adamu, man, my hands have created. It also says that, and this is the solution, that Enki, right? There's Enlil, Enki, and Ninsun. Enki and Ninsun, I believe, are the ones who are twins. It might be Enlil and Ninsun, I'm not 100% positive, but Enki and Ninsun decide to do this. This is what they do. Well, this is what Ninsun does. What she does, it says in the text, she took the baby to term, right? So they took a hominoid baby, they tinkered with its DNA. What she ended up doing was placing the baby inside her own womb. The tinkered DNA, the tinkered cells, she placed them kind of like they do now, right? With women to be able to, what do they call that? I don't even know what they call it. You guys know what they call it. I don't even know what they call it when they place the eggs inside of the woman. So what she, listen, this is serious shit. I'm laughing because it's like, what the fuck? It says that what she did, basically she took the tinkered with DNA, she put the eggs inside of herself, put it inside of her womb, and carried the baby to term for 10 months and gave birth to Adamu, which was Adam, the first man. She created the first man. And she created it from inside of herself. And this is how we were able to start reproducing. Because before that, we weren't able to. We were just clones before that, supposedly, right? This is all, I don't know if I should say supposedly, but right? So after that, and there was an issue, right? There started to become an issue because once Ninsun, Isis, gave birth to Adamu, the first man, Enlil found out that Enki and Ninsun actually started tinkering with the DNA, so much so that they made human beings have the capability to be greater than the Anunnaki themselves. So we human beings have the ability to have more technology, to have more understanding, to have more expansiveness, to have more awareness, to have more enlightenment than the beings that supposedly created us. Right? Now I say supposedly because I don't deny, here's my thing. I'm not in denial or acceptance of any of this information. I'm giving it to you because this is what I was told to do. Okay? I'm being a servant, right? I'm being a servant. Okay, so from there is when ancient Sumerian people, the Sumerian people start to again learn language, start to build, they start to mine, they start to do agriculture, they start to learn mathematics, astrology, and all of this information comes from the Anunnaki themselves in that area. Now, again, I don't believe that there was one species that came at that time. I believe that there were probably different species of Anunnaki that came down at that time, like Thoth, he is extremely important. It's actually funny because he's also called Hermes. I'm reading this book with my book club. And you can see it says Hermetic philosophy. This is all about the universal laws. It goes through the universal laws and the understanding of energy and frequency, and how these laws don't just exist in this dimension, but they are universal laws. They are laws that exist within every single dimension within this universe. And it really does open up your awareness and your perspective on spirit itself and creation and how we can create our reality and all of the things. Now, I do think that this is important because I bring up Thoth because there is a story that Thoth and Marduk were brothers. And at one point they were ruling, or they were ruling over Atlantis at the same time. And they got into a fight. So Thoth ended up traveling, basically. And what Marduk did is Marduk went to the Egypt area that you see now. Now, in the Egyptian gods, Marduk is referred to as Amun-Ra. Okay, this is extremely important to me personally, because I don't know if you guys, how long some of you have been here, but I personally was going through this thing about saying amen, because I don't know why I say it. I think it's just something that I've been programmed to say. I never grew up with religion. I never grew up with any of that stuff. But for some reason, amen seemed to be something that I continuously said. Now, what I found out is that Amun-Ra, or Marduk, which is an Anunnaki, decided that he didn't want, and this was in ancient Egypt, and I believe that this is why Thoth and Marduk started fighting, because Marduk became power hungry, and Marduk did not want human beings to be worshiping other Anunnaki, because this is something that they tampered with our DNA. They did put something called the worship gene within our DNA. And this is actually a fucking thing. You can look this up. This gene key can be turned on or off within our systems. And we've been talking, this is so fucking interesting, because we've been talking about how certain genes that have been separated within us in our awareness are starting to come together, right? This is why this time period is really, really interesting, because some of those genes, some of those DNAs that have been, I guess you could call, spliced apart, are starting to naturally come together because of the energies, because of the awareness, because of the astrological systems, all of the things that are playing out right now. They're playing out for a specific reason, okay? So the Anunnaki have said to put this worship gene within us, and Marduk decided that he didn't want human beings to worship anybody outside of him. So he was the creator of monotheism and not polytheism. And Amun-Ra, Marduk, this is when you start to see that the great sphinxes and things like that within Egypt, they start to get chipped away, right? They start to get chipped away, and you can see it. Like, if you do any sort of studying on ancient Egypt, the archaeologists all talk about how the placement and the size of the face on things like the Sphinx doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. Why they would carve out such a small face on such a big animal body? It doesn't make sense, right? And this was said to all happen because of Amun-Ra, because of Marduk. And you can tell by the name Amun-Ra, right? Amen. So he put into place that when you're done praying, right, you say Amen. You honor me at the end of your prayer. That is where Amen comes from. Amun-Ra, Marduk created that because he started to create monotheism, because he wanted so much power and he wanted to be worshipped by the human beings. So that is an awareness. Another awareness is the fact that the creation story and the Enumi, I believe it's the Enumi Elish. I have it in here. Enuma Elish creation story from the ancient Sumerians. A lot of those stories are basically, first of all, this creation story is far older than the Bible, and a lot of those, the writings in those tablets in this creation story is put in the Bible as well. I mean, even the name Adam, Adam, it's the same fucking thing. It's the first man, Adam. Right? It's really, really interesting. And I'm not going to go into any more detail. We're already 30 minutes in, and I don't know how many of you guys are still watching this. But what I do want to say too, because there's a lot, I do think that this is important to mention. The Tower of Babel within the Bible, Enlil in the Bible is called Yahweh. And in the story of the Tower of Babel, basically in the Sumerian text, is that Enlil goes to Babel. Is it Babel? I'm assuming it's Babel if it's the Tower of Babel. I don't really know. Enlil basically goes to this city and he sees how smart human beings are getting, and it enrages him. And again, Enlil is a very devious being. Enlil was the type of being where human beings annoyed him. He would go and he would starve people. He would starve the people. He would wipe them out. He would tell his people, his follower, I'm assuming the Ijiji, that they could go and they could just take the wives if they want to, kill the children, kill everybody else, right? This is the type of being that this thing is, right? This Anunnaki is. What happened was when he saw how advanced they were getting in the Tower of Babel story in the Bible, what he decided to do was he decided to break up human beings, and he dispersed them. At that time in our history, we all spoke one language. right? We all spoke one language in that area. And what he decided apparently is that he decided to disperse them, change the language, and do all the things. Also at that time, he decided to change our DNA to where we could only live up to 120 years. And before that, I mean, even in the book of Genesis, before that, human beings could live hundreds of years, right? Maybe even longer. I don't know. Anyways, I don't know how true that part is, because again, I believe that I have mixed feelings about that. Right. So that's that. You guys are probably like, why is this so important? I believe that this is important because, first of all, there is such thing as a cargo cult. Like, this is a real thing in modern society. I actually have the definition. I'll read it to you guys. So the definition of a cargo cult is a system of beliefs based around the expected arrival of ancestral spirits and ships bringing cargoes of food and other goods. Now, this has happened in our modern society, and the one that I can think of is when the United States went into the Melanesian islands. And there was one island in particular where their people had zero contact with the modern outside world, right? They didn't know basically anything existed outside of their island and their people. And the United States went in, gave them food, gave them clothes, basically coaxed them into trusting them, put them on planes, and shipped them off to a different land. They took them out of their lands and dropped them somewhere else because they wanted to use their islands to test military-grade weapons, bombs, basically. Right? It's horrible. But what happened was, because these people had zero outside contact with anybody else in the modern world, and all of a sudden, these people who show up in these fucking planes that fly with these giant weapons, all of these things, they started to worship the USA. So what they would do is they would tattoo, some of them have USA tattooed on them, some of them would draw USA on them, and they would pray to the sky gods, right, to bring them more food and clothing and all the things. They ended up taking sticks, making them into look like airplanes. They made, sticks that looked like AK-47s, all of like their weapons and stuff like that. So this is something that human beings have been known to do, right? So first of all, when I can only imagine what was going through our minds, our ancestors' minds, when these giant, and these things were said to be, Anunnaki were said to be very tall beings, right? I could only imagine with technology that we could, at that time, could not even fathom, and I'm sure some of it we still can't fathom, because we haven't come together since all of these things happened properly in the way that we should. So I can only imagine how we as beings just looked at these things as God and as gods. And I believe that Spirit, God, wanted me to speak about this with you guys because here's an example. As I was doing my research, I was going through the comment section of some of these videos that I was watching, and there was one comment that struck me in particular. And it was this young woman who was basically, and I went into a very big rabbit hole. I was actually on a video about bloodlines, and she was talking about her own bloodline, her own blood type, and she was talking about, and then she brought up how she found out that we were actually created by the Anunnaki, and she just feels lost in her faith. Like, you could literally see her break down her faith or the breakdown of her faith in the comment section. It was fascinating to me. Honestly, it was fascinating to me. And I think that this is why this discussion needs to happen. I really do. I think this is why this discussion needs to happen, because I believe that religion was created by the Anunnaki to keep us small. I believe that religion was created to block us from being able to expand in our own consciousness, and to divide us as beings. I honestly think that it was more of a division, because I think that because we are of many people on this planet, especially at this point, if we were all to come together and start working together in harmony and have an understanding and truly understand the origins and the history, it's not even the origins, it's the history of us, right? Then we could all come together and we could all have, the expansion of us would be something incredible. And since Enlil did not like that and saw that we could be greater than them, and that at some point in our history we would surpass them as a species, that frightened him. And I do think that is possible for us if we're open to it. I don't believe that the Anunnaki I don't believe they are my creator. I don't believe that, period. Absolutely do not. They might have tampered with my ancestors, with my cousin's DNA, to create what I am today, right? But I don't believe that they are my creator. They are not gods. They are a species that had a certain level of technology. And I think that this is extremely important for the collective to understand. They are not gods. They are a species with an advanced technology. It does not make them gods. It does not make them God. Okay? God is the highest thing. And you want to know how? I know that God still exists. Every single human being in our DNA, right? In our DNA right now, every single human being is I heard it explained as we're like a walking microchip or memory chip, right? And every single human being within us, we have the ability in our DNA to hold 13.5 billion years of information. And that is exactly how old the Earth is. So you know from that information alone, if you as the individual can hold 13.5 billion years of stored memory, of stored information, and that is as old as the Earth is, and this creation story is talking about what did I say, 450,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago? Psh, you didn't create me. You did not create me. God created me. God created you. God created me. And that is proof for you. If you need scientific proof, that is proof. If you as an individual have the ability to hold the same amount of fucking information as old as the Earth is, that should be enough confirmation for you that you are not created by these Anunnaki. You may have been tampered with, but you were not created by the Anunnaki. You were created by Spirit, the highest power, source, right? You were created by that. I feel like we're having this conversation here because I feel like it's important for the collective to understand that this information, the new information that's coming out, should not rock your faith. Don't let it rock your faith, right? Don't fall into the trap of denying God. God is God, man. It doesn't matter It doesn't matter what sort of technological advances were tampered with in our ancestors. Do you know how many horrible things have happened to our ancestors by each other's hands, right? It's just another milestone for us, honestly. And I think that if all of us were to be able to break down our own paradigms and move past what we were taught to keep us separated, then our future is nothing but beautiful. It's nothing but amazing. So yeah, I'm gonna end it there. I don't really know what else to say about this. I really don't. I feel like I should mention George. Oh, I don't know his name. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the gentleman's name that I got, and I can't find it. I want to say George Corwell. I don't even know if that's his name. If I find it, I'll put it in the comments below. But this is a gentleman who actually did the research on how much information our bodies can hold too. So we're 41 minutes in. I hope that wasn't too boring. I hope you guys are still here with me. I hope you guys, if this is something that's intriguing to you, you can go out again. I would start with Billy Carson. He really is, like, he is very extremely fucking knowledgeable. But just do your own research, and please just remember that these beings were just technologically advanced species, and if they did, I do believe that they did tamper with us. But I mean, fucking amen. We tamper with each other like it's not, right? Like, it doesn't mean you created me. You are not my God. Amun-Ra, Marduk. I will not be saying amen anymore. You will not hear that come out of my fucking mouth at all. At the end of a prayer, no, 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 ma'am, no, sir. It is not. I will not. I will not. Like, no. Absolutely not. I will not give honor and homage to a power-hungry species thing, Annunaki, that came and fucking tampered with me and my ancestors and my cousins and shit like that, and made us slaves and treated us like we were dumb, not even knowing that we were created to be better than them by the people who wanted us to think that they created us. No, I don't think so. You guys fucked up. Here's me. I'm talking. I got a whole different energy just came out though. You got me fucked up, man. All right, you guys. I love you. I will see you guys soon. We're gonna do some energy readings. Hopefully tomorrow morning I'll get one in and I'll be able to post it. I do have a meeting with my girl in the UK, so I'm quite excited about that. So we'll see. All right, I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.